for benefit, I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and you'll see a little thing on your screen that says recording in progress. And if you just click got it, then we'll be off to the races. If everyone's still here, that it means everyone clicked on that button. Thank you. So as an update, this has been an interesting election cycle. 3 of the candidates who ran for local office with a lot of support from the seniors on this call and beyond won. Those of you who are with us in the park remember when Betty Stocks addressed our group, and yay, Betty won, right? Gene Dixon up in Kannapolis won. So, and Diamond Williams in Harrisburg was reelected. She was the incumbent. So 3 out of the 6 candidates that were fielded, even though they were nonpartisan elections, these are clearly Democratic candidates who share our values, our progressive values, and I think are going to make a huge difference in each of those respective towns. There was no representation out here in Mount Pleasant, for the record, since we're being recorded. And I don't think we had a Democrat on the ballot in Midland. Andrea's on the call, she can validate if that's true or not. But we're making inroads in Cabarrus County. So thank you, everyone who took the time to make that happen. The precinct level, Dorsey, all you guys are working at precinct level. Wendy Wood for pulling all of that together and keeping it organized in a difficult time. Wendy had posted something on, for those of you who are on Slack, that says, okay, we just need to take a little bit of a deep breath now and get ready for the next cycle. But, you know, as we head into the holidays, take a measure of what we've been able to do, celebrate that, and then get ready for the next cycle, which is what this meeting will be somewhat about. One of the agenda items was to think about what we want to do as a group for our December meeting and beyond. And I'm going to throw that out for suggestions to the group, to those of you who are on this call, and we'll do that beyond in the next month or so as well. We'll also try to get some feedback through our newsletter. By show of hands, if you would raise your hand, how many of you have seen and read the most recent newsletter, the November newsletter? Wendy, that's okay. I can't see Rosa, but I assume she did. Okay, so that's perfect. And Andrea, you did the traditional hands up. Thank you. When having read through the newsletter, you know that 2 of our board members in the Senior Democrats had to resign because they are doing poll duty for the county Board of Elections. So, and they're not allowed to come back, as I understand it, until the expiration of their current term, which will be in the next election will come up in 2023. So we're looking for a first vice chair to replace the seat of Marcia McClellan, and a 3rd vice chair who will replace Dolores Atkinson, who is also a poll worker now. So give some thought to that. If you or someone you know would like to step up to that, when you read the newsletter, you'll discover that first vice chair, in addition to being the person who would fill this chair if I get hit by a truck. The main job is recruitment and membership. The 3rd vice chair, the main job there, and Dolores has done a great job with that, is outreach. So that could be social media, that could be web presence, that could be Facebook, plain old picking up the phone and calling people, emailing, whatever it takes to get community outreach to the seniors. And then this coming month and a half, we're also looking for 3 committee chairs to head committees for membership, for events, and for outreach. So please give it some thought. I know it's always something when you ask people to dedicate their time, but I guarantee you it'll be time well spent. And you probably sense with everyone in this group, we have a passion for advocating for seniors. We lost 3 seniors this last month, and we know that we're in a lot of us who are in my age group and beyond, we're in the final quarter. So we need to pass our collective wisdom on to the next generation, and keep our group organized and keep it focused so that we're laser focused on getting the right things done for our community and for our democracy. So I ask all of you to be thinking about that, and also ask you to be thinking about what are some of the things beyond politics that you would like to see as part of our agenda in the next 12 months. Last year and the year before and the year before that, we had everything from the sheriff's department and talking about law enforcement to someone who came in and talked about healthcare. We had people talking about parks and recreation. So if you would use your imagination and let us know what you think some of the issues are that impact you, impact those around you. And they could be cross-generational. So what are things that affect your children or grandchildren that you think seniors can advocate for them as well? So again, if there's someone who wants to comment on any of those things here and now, just raise your hand and unmute yourself. But if you're more comfortable, doing that offline, that's fine too. And I noticed, Carol, you joined the call, Carol Anderson. And I just shared with the group before you joined, Carol, that it's being recorded, so you don't have to worry about taking notes. This will be recorded for, for transcription later on. So
thank you very much, Vincent.
Well, of course, Carol. Get well, heal and get well.
I'm working on it.
I know you are, and I know Bob's helping too. So, okay, I see a hand, Mitchell. Yes,
yeah,
sir.
I have a question. If you are working at the polls, is that, you said you can't be an officer or whatever if you're working at the polls? Is that what I understood?
No. Correct.
Yes, if you're a paid poll worker, you cannot be an officer in the county party, nor can you be an officer in one of the affiliates. And we're an affiliate. We're officially recognized by the state as an affiliate of the state party. So yeah, so it applies there. So you can be a member, you just cannot be an officer if you're a poll worker. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah,
Good.
it's a bummer because I have to tell you, Marcia McClellan and Dolores Atkinson did one really outstanding work for us. All of our board members, we all chip in and roll up our sleeves and make phone calls and do what has to be done to get the word out. Ruth Darrow, who's on this call, is our treasurer, who keeps us all on the straight and narrow, and Wendy, who's our second vice chair. I mean, you guys, we're really, really blessed. So we want to keep the momentum going. Some of the older folks who are not on Facebook, they don't have internet. Margene Troutman as an example. Sometimes the only way we can get in touch is by getting in the car and go over and knock on the door or pick up the phone. But for a lot of the younger senior Dems, 50, 60, 70, 80, yes, 80 is young, right? For those
Yes,
of us,
sir, it is.
it is, right? It is. And when
Yes.
our children have all gotten us to learn how to use Zoom and get on Facebook and all the rest of the stuff that has to be done. So yeah. I talked with Margene 2 days ago or 3 days ago, I forget which it was, but we're hoping that maybe by January or February, we can get back to some kind of meeting in person. We're all waiting to hear what the state has to say, even though the COVID numbers are going down nationally and even in our state. Unfortunately, they're not going down here in Cabarrus County. They're kind of stabilizing. In fact, the death toll has gone up. So if we could only get some of those folks who are resisting, if we just get them to get the dang shot. No one likes a needle. I just got my booster shot a couple of days ago, and it hurts. I hate needles just like everyone else, but my goodness, it sure beats the heck out of being in a ventilator, So hopefully people will get smart and do the right thing. But anyhow, so I'm going to try to be mindful of the clock, because around 7 o'clock, Amy's going to join our call in preparation for what she's doing with the North Carolina project. I'm going to share my screen and talk a little bit about one of the challenges we have coming up with redistricting and congressional races. For those of you who have been on the calls, the state senior Democrats have run every Thursday for the last umpty 9 weeks, so since September, meetings that highlighted the individual candidates for US Senate, and there are 8 of them out there that are announced, declared. The last one of those sessions will be held on November 18th. If you haven't registered yet, I encourage you to register. They only allow 100 people into that Zoom call. So if you want to have input into the call, this is the time to register. Jeff Jackson will be the last person on that series. And then sometime in February, I believe they'll have all of the candidates coming together, those who are still remaining in the primary session. So I think we have a pretty good handle on what's happening with the US Senate, which affects everyone in our state. But here in Cabarrus County, we have to see what's going to happen with the US House of Representatives. So I'm going to do a screen share. I might ask Martin to talk in just a second, but hopefully on your screen in just a second, you will see what amounts to the, oh, here we go. Oh, what good timing. Scott is joining us here in a minute. All right. Scott, are you on this call? Let me see if I scroll.
Yes, I am.
Okay, perfect timing, Scott. We were just starting to say that there is a new map in District 10, includes all of Cabarrus County. And so Cabarrus, which used to be in District 8, is now in District 10. And as far as I know, you are the only Democrat running so far in the primary. And can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing? I just wanted to make sure everybody saw this screen. If you could see, it's Cabarrus County and Rowan, a little bit of Iredell, I believe. That you can see it all on the map, you guys. I'm going to stop screen sharing so that we can see Scott and have him tell you a little bit about what we're facing and who the challenger is going to be. And Scott, if you would take, are you able to show your video?
Yeah, just a second. I'm having to get, I'm having to work from my phone. So hang on 1 second.
Okay.
And we will be glad to participate. I hope all our Democrats in Cabarrus County are doing well this evening. And let's see here. I think you guys can see me in my car. So I came out here so I could get set up. Hey, everybody. So
Drive safely, Scott.
well, I'm just sitting in my car outside my house. We've lost power, and I think they said they won't have power back up until about 8:30. So so anyway, I came out to my car so I could sit out here comfortably. But anyway, hope Democrats are doing well in Cabarrus County. Thank you, Vincent, for letting me attend the meeting this evening. And
Well,
just to start things off, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for being here, Scott. If we can do maybe like about 10 minutes or so, then Amy's going to come on in just around 7-ish or so. But if you could stay on the call and then also do a Q&A after she leaves, if that's okay.
Sure, be glad to.
So tell us what's happening, Scott. We're in the race. What's going on?
Well, originally I declared in February to run in District 13 since Senator Ted Budd, well, not Senator Ted Budd, since Representative Ted Budd decided to announce a run for US Senate. And we announced back in February, and we were hoping that the congressional district would stay the same. And for the general part, they have. Davie County, Rowan County, Davidson are still part of the original 13. So they added Cabarrus, which I'm happy to be back in. I'm glad to know so many of my friends may have an opportunity to actually vote for me this go around. They've added half of the county of Iredell. And then if you look at Davidson and Guilford, they kind of carved it into a crescent moon and then did a little corner of Guilford County. But Richard Hudson declared that he was going to run for this seat since we think he lives in Cabarrus County. It's always been speculation where he actually resides. He does own a house in Cabarrus County, but for the most part, he lives up in Washington, D.C. with his wife and family. But we're going to be running on the success of the Democratic Party. How exciting to talk to you folks after President Biden and Democrats passed the infrastructure bill. North Carolina is going to see over 100,000 new jobs added from infrastructure projects such as new roads, bridges, water, clean energy, climate change issues that we need to address right now because we've seen huge amounts of climate change activity just here in our communities with up and down temperatures. We had the hottest summer on record, I believe. And, when I was traveling through the district, a lot of the farmers were worried about their plants suffering from extreme heat and lack of water and stuff. And so, we've seen torrential downpours of rain. And it's just, we've really got to get focused on this for the sake and the future of our children. I'm running as a strong Democrat. I'm not afraid to call out Richard Hudson for what he's done. He supported the January 6th insurrection, and he voted against the infrastructure plan, as well as so many other COVID relief packages that would help our community and our district. And interesting enough, his excuse for voting against the infrastructure bill last Friday was because he wanted Nancy Pelosi and Democrats to wait for the Congressional Budget Office to score the bill on how it would affect our economy. And interesting enough, we never heard him require those same points with the trillions of tax cuts that he voted for during the Trump administration. So Richard Hudson has really shown who he represents. He doesn't represent the little guy like us. He represents the extreme rich and the donor class that supports his campaign for re-election. And, what's interesting is, Hudson ran on term limits. And if this would be his fifth term in office, so giving him a total of 10 years working in the federal government and doing nothing for working class folks in our communities in the district. What's also troubling is, he hasn't denounced the January 6th insurrection. He voted against nullifying the votes of so many Americans, claiming voter integrity, yet he did not claim voter integrity for his own election win in District 8 last year. So the hypocrisy within the Republican Party is quite astounding.
Wow. Well, he also made a big deal when he was representing us in District 8 of being the congressman for Fort Bragg. Now, Fort Bragg's not going to be in his new district, so
yeah.
So he's got to come up with something different. I don't know what that would be, but
well, it's clearly he's not going to have all those photo opportunities to stand with our military personnel. So he's going to, it's really quite disappointing that, he voted against the budget that would increase pay to our active duty personnel. And of course, he never spoke up when Trump tried to take millions away from Fort Bragg projects to build that wall that is now falling at an alarming rate along our southern border. So they constantly scream immigration. They constantly scare us with lies of critical race theory, which isn't taught in our public schools. And it's really quite sad that he's not listening to the voices and the marginalized folks in our district that have been struggling paycheck to paycheck during the COVID pandemic. and I don't know how many people out there were touched by COVID. I hope for those of you who lost loved ones, including myself. I lost my father-in-law to COVID-19 December 30th, and it was really quite sad. He was such a good man to me, and my father was never really in my life, and for the 16 years of marriage to my wife, he was really a wonderful father-in-law. I couldn't have asked for such a wonderful man, and he is sorely missed, as I'm sure so many folks in our communities in Cabarrus, Rowan, and all the counties that make up District 10 are struggling with the loss. I mean, we deserve to have more time with these people. And Richard Hudson was just he was just like Trump, pushing this science that, oh, you can take bleach, you can take ivermectin, you don't have to wear a mask, your freedoms. And, to damn be public safety and public health. And it's really troubling. To me, Richard Hudson, because he did not get behind the science, did not get behind the recommendations of Dr. Fauci and those who work in the CDC. He has blood on his hands from the death of so many people in our communities, including my father-in-law, with his rhetoric of not supporting mask mandates, not supporting vaccines. And sure enough, he's vaccinated. You can you can bet it. You bet your last dollar.
Well, Scott, we all are in this together, and we're going to do what we can to help you here. And Aimy Steele has just joined our call, and I know she's left a meeting with the Rotary Club to be here, and has a limited time span. So what I'd like to do with your permission, guys,
Yeah, sure.
is have Aimy talk a little bit about her project, which is the new North Carolina project. And there's going to be a meeting after this meeting ends at 7:30, where you're all invited to attend that. Hopefully you've all registered. If you went to the newsletter, you saw a link for registering. I will personally also be on that call. Scott, if you can hang in there with us, I'd also like to, toward the end of our meeting, find out a little bit more about your proactive plans as for you as Congress, and what we can do, what you can do to help us, and what we can do to help you. So thank you, and hang in there, Scott, with us. Don't run away. Aimy, welcome to the call. You are on mute. Can you tell us what's going on in your world, Aimy? You were on television now. You're nationally known, and what is going on?
I'm just Aimy from down the street who is speaking with all of my friends from Cabarrus County. So, hey, everyone, it is so exciting to be here with you. I feel like I'm back at home with my friends and those whom I do business with and do democracy with. So thank you so much for being here tonight. Vincent, thank you for the invitation. Yes, I'd love to catch you all up on what's going on. I have a presentation, but I'm going to save it for the 7:30 time. I did have a presentation for you, but I just like to talk with you and have a conversation. But if there are any questions, please just raise your hands. But let's jump on in. We are in a mess. That is the best way I could describe it. We're in a mess. We're in a mess of our democracy in general. And when you have candidates who quit their jobs, move from place to place to run for office, but yet we have a situation where voter turnout is at not where it needs to be. It's at an all-time, just not a reliable number. It's not at an all-time low, nor is it at an all-time high. It's just at an unreliable number from year to year, especially from presidential years to midterm election years. So I lost my last election. I'm sure many of you witnessed it. And not only did I lose, but more than 6,000 progressive-leaning voters did not vote in District 82. That is shocking, okay? It's beyond shocking. But I don't blame them so much, because we as Democrats did not do the normal door knocking, canvassing, and all the normal efforts that we would typically engage in. But yet our Republican counterparts knocked 3 million doors in North Carolina in 2020. And in case you didn't know that, I just was in a story on Spectrum News just yesterday, and the GOP leadership from the state of North Carolina talked about their efforts and how proud they were of those efforts. And folks, if we're going to win anything, we have to get out and talk to voters. It's not enough to just talk to you all, the choir. I call you all the choir. You're moving in the same direction. You're singing the same pitch for the most part. We're tuned in pretty nicely. But when you have others who are involved in this thing we call voting and democracy, you have to actually engage them. You have to talk to them. You got to go to where they are. You have to be where the people are and interact with the people so they'll know that we care about them. And so that's what I decided to do after the election. So for those who don't know the story, immediately after I lost, I was really ready to call Governor Cooper and say, thank you so much for trusting in me to run for North Carolina's House of Representatives, but I'm done, sir. Thank you, but I'm done. But I had these meetings called debriefing meetings. So I had about 16 of them in the month of November. And I also went to Georgia to try to get into the mix of helping knock doors and all that, just to get excited after the election. While I was having these meetings and people were analyzing what went wrong with the election in 2020, it really just boiled down to we didn't have a strong field game, nor did we have anyone that we could turn to and say, hey, if the Biden-Harris administration says stop knocking, then this infrastructure is going to be in place to still keep knocking and keep reaching out to people in a safe, COVID-friendly way, using all the PPE that we could find, but in a safe way. We didn't have that infrastructure. So I just basically kept repeating myself for 16 different meetings saying, well, we didn't run a field game. Well, we didn't run field like we normally do. Well field, well field, well field. Everyone was on the same page. They were basically like, okay, you're right, field, that's right. That's exactly right. But then in December, I thought, let's get all the grassroots leaders together, the ones that I knew about, and let's put everyone together and have a conversation. So we did that in December. About 35 leaders of different grassroots groups came together and we met and we decided that field was the biggest reason we lost. But then I broke everyone off into discussion groups on their own, into Zoom rooms. And as they were in their breakout rooms, they came up with 3 reasons why we lost the election. So 3 negatives and 3 positive takeaways. Like, what do we need to do as a result of this? And out of that were some amazing ideas. But guess what? It all centered around building an apparatus or an infrastructure that can still keep knocking, calling, and texting after the elections to keep people engaged year round, not just for one election and then parachute out. So parachute in, parachute out, not just like that, but ongoing in a consistent way so that you don't have to rev up the voters every time you want them to vote in an election. So around January, which is really the best time to analyze an election, not November, everyone's mad and sad and tired. December, everyone's getting ready for the holidays, and that's just not a time to analyze. January is when everyone's clear and more refreshed, rested, and feeling a little bit at ease. So around January, I started talking with some people, and after 70 plus meetings, I decided to start the new North Carolina Project, which is a year-round field program working in certain areas across the state. Some of these areas include areas that have high populations of Black and Brown voters. So you may ask, what's a Black and Brown voter? Well, I am one. See, I'm brown, but people call me Black, like a Black female, but I'm brown. But Black people, Native and Indigenous people, Latinx people, and AAPI, Asian American Pacific Islander people. So the focus of the organization, of my organization, both of them, is on rallying together and making sure Black and Brown people vote, and that we target and invest in communities of color across the state to turn out voters and to register eligible people of color who are not currently registered to vote. So that is kind of our strategy. That's where we're working. So far, we've raised between the C3 and the C4 and the future super PAC, we've raised $2 million, and we plan to continue raising funds so that we can hire organizers. We've already extended an offer. We have 2 organizers on staff, just hired 2 more, and are interviewing to hire 8 by the end of the year, and maybe 20, roughly 20 by March of 22, and then hopefully up to 40 by the election. So the goal is to hire people from within the communities who know the communities to do a lot of the targeted outreach, but we also have many opportunities for volunteerism and also for people to work in other areas that have nothing to do with explicitly going to the communities, but helping us in some other volunteer area. So I'll pause there and answer or take any questions you might have about this new work.
Well, first of all, Amy, thank you. That is awesome work, and we can't leave all those votes on the table. And I wish we could get to a point where we don't see color at all. You know, this is just nutso. But this is not new in our democracy. I was sharing with one of the people on this call before, I won't mention her name, that I just finished reading a book about Alexander Hamilton and the rage of our founding fathers who decided that some people would be counted as 3/5 of a person. So this goes back pretty far in our history, right? So we need to get all hands on deck here. So my first question is, how can we as seniors help you, Amy, get those votes out? Because we need every Democratic vote, regardless of skin pigmentation. We need people who are going to protect our democracy. And if a chunk of folks stay home, we lose it. So how can we help you? What can we do?
Yeah, so a couple things. First of all, I do want to challenge the notion that we should be colorblind and not see color, because I do want you to see my color. I do want you to recognize that I am different and that you're different, right? What I don't want is for my color to be an inhibiting factor or for it to be a problem as we look for opportunities to advance, or as we go for different, for the same job, or as we go for admission to college. I want us to be seen as equals, right? And so what we see now is that although color is this social construct that's really not real, it still drives how we interact with people on a daily basis. So I want color to be seen and viewed, but I also want it to be seen and viewed in a positive light and in the right light, right? So I wanted to say that. Secondly, how can you help? There are many ways to help. And so probably one of the biggest questions I get each week is, I'm white, what can I do? I'm Black, what can I do? I'm Latinx, what can I do? And, we have several things for everyone to do. So when you talk about volunteering, you can knock doors, help us make phone calls, help us send text messages. Those are the easy things. You can help deliver, package, or mail different pieces of merchandise. So we have an online store that we are launching. And so people will be able to purchase merchandise, which help us to continue raising money. You can package those things. If you like to deal with the mail and deal with all that, you can do that from the comfort of your own home and have those items picked up, delivered, and sent to different people. That's one thing. We obviously are always raising funds. So you can donate. And I just dropped the website link in the chat. You can also help us with planning events. We have a huge event coming up on January 22nd in a Native community here in North Carolina. And I have in the next week or so, 4,000 brand new pairs of chino pants being delivered to my garage here in Concord. I will need all sorts of help, okay, with those chino pants. We are working to get manufacturers to donate in North Carolina based, to donate shirts, shoes, socks, so that we can make a complete male outfit because the pants are male. And then we are doing a backpack drive with school supplies inside, plus a coat drive for kids and for women. So we're going to have this massive giveaway with a DJ, with bouncy houses, and all sorts of family fun on January 22nd. So what we need help with is just all the logistics around that event. Need many volunteers to help make phone calls to manufacturing companies to get different, use our donation letter to help solicit some donations, those types of things. So there are always things to do to help us with planning events. We also need help staffing events. So we attend powwows. We have a powwow tonight, as a matter of fact. One of our executive director of the C3 is attending the powwow tonight. So we work closely with the Native American leadership here in North Carolina, as well as Latin American leadership and Asian leadership here. And so the powwow that we attend tonight is virtual, but for some of the in-person powwows, we need help staffing our tables and staffing the event. So if you can come, help pass out materials, help gather names in a safe, COVID-friendly way on our iPads, that's a way you can assist. And also, you could just suggest something that you want to do to help the cause. We may not have thought of everything, but we are open to suggestions. We just want you to do something. Don't just sit there and say you care. I'm going to say it. And all you do is vote. Okay. I can vote and be a good, patriotic citizen by exercising my right to vote. Voting is not enough. I'm sorry to say, I wish it were, but it's just not enough. We have to do more because other people need more. They need more touches and they need more engagement. So pick one of those ways and engage with us in one of those things.
Thank you, Amy. Amy, can you send me some information that I can include in the December newsletter so we can get that word out prior to your January meeting?
Absolutely. And I just dropped all of them in the chat as well.
Yeah, I'm recording this, so these chat links should be available to us after this call, but just in case, right? Awesome. Now, Amy, I personally will be on the call, your call at 7:30, and I think a few others on this call will be on it as well. So I'm mindful of your time. I know you have to probably leave here and get ready for your call since you're going to be hosting that one, and I know what that's like. But before you do, I see a hand up. Ruth Darrow, did you have a question for Amy?
Hi, Amy.
Hey, Ruth.
Congratulations, and I really appreciate your continued effort. We need so much help here.
Yes.
And I appreciate all that you have taken on. My question is, with the structure in place provided by the county party, dividing this whole county into precincts, we have a hard time finding volunteers in each precinct to really develop the ground game necessary to push the voters. And as I read through several manuals on how to make this whole thing work, it all comes down to having enough volunteers in each precinct to be able to take under their wing so many voters and ensure that those voters, regardless of color, race, ethnicity, whatever, get to the voting location and cast a vote.
Right.
And it seems to me that we have all of these organizations doing so much good work, that the volunteer base, the really strong Democrats, are being siphoned off. And maybe that's just my opinion, and maybe we're not working hard enough to find other volunteers. But that's my real concern, is if the county party had the grassroots support and the organization that you're working so hard to develop, it seems like we could really be a lot more effective than we are. And that's just a concern of mine. There must be 6 or 7 wonderful organizations out there working on registering and getting people to the polls, but there's nobody showing up to the county meetings to try to energize that group.
Yeah. So a couple things. Number one, you're right. Volunteers are definitely being pulled in many, many directions. And it's that same 80-20 rule. 80% of the volunteers, 20% of the volunteers do 80% of the work. And if those 20% are performing at a high level, then they're going to be known by people in the community, and their names are going to keep coming up. And then people are going to say, okay, let's make them a volunteer. What we do is we, of course, get volunteers from everywhere, but we also pay people. And, part of our structure is to pay. And I raise to pay. I raise to pay other people, to empower them to invest in those communities and to ensure volunteers aren't taken for granted. Because what happens is volunteers get tired, they get worn out, and they're just over it, right? And rightfully so. People can't be expected to just volunteer for the rest of their lives. Sometimes, it works for them. I'm in a place I can volunteer, but now my time is a little bit more, short or small or few. I just have less time. So I don't volunteer as much as I did, say, 6 months ago. But unfortunately, we have to get into a different mindset about where to recruit volunteers and how we recruit volunteers. Right now, working with young people, 17, 18, 19, 20, especially college age, that is a key area for connecting with the universities and with other institutions around here, schools, community colleges, the nursing program, or the nursing school here, being able to target and talk with those people and those students about volunteerism and activity-based volunteerism, as well as volunteerism doing different things that they're not typically asked to do, is a key strategy. Another strategy is on talking with other county parties on how they do things. So one of the things I have, we've met with the Watauga County Democratic Women several times. They have a system. It is a fortified system. It's central to, well, it places volunteers from Appalachian State University at a core like area in terms of helping these particular women and the whole Democratic Party to keep Watauga County blue. And Watauga County on paper is very red, but in actuality, it is blue because of these women. And what they do is they work with the university. They stay very connected with I think the college Dems, and then they activate those students. But they also have a couple of super volunteers who help to activate the students. So they're not necessarily doing it. It's a 1 or 2 super volunteers who are doing that active engagement. You only need a handful to then go out and get a few more, who then go out and get a few more. You don't need like 100 on that first level. You just need a handful. And those handfuls should be able to go out and get a few more. And then I would also consider some unconventional ways to attract people. It would be really cool to sign up volunteers at the local brewery, right? But we don't go to the brewery to just sign up volunteers. People go to take part in the fun and, just be a part of the crowd, as opposed to looking for people in the crowd who seem to be outgoing, who might be on our similar causes, where we share the similar cause. But I would just consider being a little bit more creative with where we find volunteers and engaging them with paid internships, $500 stipends per semester for a student, those types of things. They're out there for sure.
That's great. Thank you.
Sure. Michael?
I have been a volunteer in the past. I've worked the polls. I vote like you. But when I was a volunteer, I had no tools afforded to me.
Mhm.
When I say tools, people that you're trying to talk to, if they will allow you to speak,
Mhm.
to know what you have to say. I don't like making something up. I like to know who I'm out there speaking for. Say it was you. I want to know exactly what I need to tell those people why they should vote for you.
Yes.
And that isn't, we get people to volunteer, but then we just tell them, and they did. They told me, go out and knock in this whole neighborhood. And it was in Kannapolis, and I live in Concord. But that didn't bother me. It's just nobody, I didn't know what to say to people. I really didn't. And I don't want to make up some kind of hooey. That's
Right.
politics is all about right now, is if you can lie good, hey, you got a great story.
That's right.
And it needs to be called for what it is. If it's a lie, it's a lie.
Well,
And-
Michael, you raise a great question. I mean, a great thought. Number one, when you engage volunteers, you have to have a plan of what they do to get up to speed or be trained and be ready. A volunteer is only as good as their training. So I completely 100% agree with you. And every volunteer should have some type of toolkit, a script, practice a couple times. I remember when I was running in 2018, my field manager at the time, he had 4 strategic weekends every weekend in June just for volunteer engagement. And the goal was to bring people in, invite them to an event where the candidates were going to be speaking that they would eventually volunteer for, and let the candidates talk, speak, excite them, feed them, and then train them and get them signed up for a shift immediately. But then beyond that, there was a targeted practice around what to do if this happens on the door, what to do if this happens when you're making phone calls. How do you text? How do you engage? So all of those things are crucially important. The other thing I would say is having fun with volunteers is a great way to make sure volunteers return, and not just putting them to work and just, going after it. So we're having like a volunteer kickoff next week. We're doing raffles, giveaways, all sorts of things, but it's all online because we have 160 people who've signed up to volunteer across the state. And when you coordinate in a way that's legally allowed with some of these groups, then maybe that'll take the pressure off some of the parties to actually assemble. You know what I mean? Because that's another reason why we have to do what we're doing. There's a lot of pressure for county parties to really assemble and get volunteers. And these volunteers are fleeing, like Ruth said, they're going all these different places. So we have a responsibility to make sure we are maximizing the volunteers so that if the county parties are not seeing the volunteer base as much, then somebody is able to use them in the county party's backyard, if that makes sense. Still accomplishing the same goals. So on that note, Vincent, I have to run.
I know you need to run, and I appreciate Amy taking the time to be here. For those of us, some of us are going to be late on your call because we're running a little late now. So we'll see you maybe in 10 or 15 minutes.
Sounds great. Thank
for
you
being
all.
here. Thank you.
I'll be back. All right, take care.
Thank you. I want to acknowledge Betty Stocks, who just joined us on the call. Congratulations, Betty. And it's nice to know we have a voice. We mentioned you earlier on this call before you joined us, that we now have a voice again, continued in Concord. So thank you. If you're able to share your video and give us any words of wisdom, that would be great. If you're in a situation where you can't talk, we understand.
I can talk. I'd just like to say thank you to everyone who supported and voted for me during this election. I'm sorry I'm late getting here, but I had my first official city council work session meeting and just getting in from that. But thank you all so very, very much. Reach out to me if you have questions or concerns going forward. Thank you,
buddy. We appreciate your involvement and celebrate your win. Cindy Furtenbach just joined the call a second ago, and there's another person who's been up and down with every meeting. Thank you for joining this one. Cindy, you were kind enough to launch an initiative for ringing the bell in memory of Harry Turner, and I wonder if you could just share a little bit about that. But first, before I do that, Scott Huffman, you have your hand up. Are you able to stay with us for a little bit?
Yes, I am. I just was wanting to talk about some things that I had done with some other races in the area. So after we're done with this, I'll be glad to.
Okay, yeah, we're going to run our meeting a little bit later than we had originally anticipated. So if you will hang with us, but I do want to acknowledge what Cindy has to say, because for those of you who remember Harry, every year he would ring the bell, and Cindy is working with the Rotary and other groups with Salvation Army to give us an opportunity to carry on that great tradition. And Cindy, I'll let you talk a little bit more about that. We did post it in the newsletter, but go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Vincent. And I was at my Rotary meeting, which Amy was at until she came to this meeting. So Tuesday's just a busy night here for everybody. So Stan Carpenter, who is actually the husband of Carolyn Carpenter on the school board, he called me and said, he knew Harry and I were good friends, and said, do you think that the senior Dems would still be interested in ringing the bell? Harry kind of always took care of that until, he passed away last fall. So I said, sure, that's one way I can kind of give back to Harry's memory, who, he helped me so much along the way. So anyway, so I created a Sign Up Genius. Vincent has been kind enough to put it in the newsletter. Just keep scrolling down. It says sign up for CCSD bell ringing or something. Anyways, you can sign up for an hour slot. It's at the Sam's Mart in Kannapolis, the same place I think Harry had been doing signups for in years past. I just did the Sign Up Genius to make it easier. So please consider signing up. You're welcome to bring a family member with you. You know, maybe one person's a member of Senior Dems and then a family member. I just ask you to not kind of solicit other friends or whatever at this point to take whole time slots, so we can get at least one Senior Dem on every time slot that day. And as Vincent mentioned, I'm also doing another day for our Rotary Club is signing up to do that. So I'll be ringing on 2 different days, but that's all good. It's for a good cause. And we just appreciate anything you can do with that. And feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about it. It's pretty simple. we're able to put a sign up of what group we represent. So I'll make a little kind of placard to post that morning. And then, the next day, another group will come and do it. So just a little tribute to Harry for the time he spent supporting all of us and supporting the Salvation Army.
Thank you, Cindy, for putting that together, and sign up genius form, which is in the newsletter. We'll put it in the December newsletter as well. So if you all look there's only so many slots available. So if you can sign up and pick an hour that works for you, that'd be wonderful. Rosa Sims, so you have your hand up, I think. I'm not sure. Rosa, did you have a question for someone on the docket here, or is that just from before? And you're on mute, so I can't hear you. Okay. Rosa?
No, I didn't have a question. I had a remark, and sort of piggybacking off of what Amy was saying. That one of the things that we need to do as seniors, as adults, we need to begin to engage our young people, not just the ones at college, but high school. We've got to start, because we need people that have energy, which they have, that can go out and do a lot of the heavy walking and lifting for us, because some of us can't do it. So we've got to start thinking about how we can engage young people.
Yeah. Yes, and it's hard for me to believe that, I have a grandson who's 19 years old now, so it's like, oh man, it's happening. But thank you. You could lower your hand, Rosa. I appreciate that. Ruthie Wright Roberts just joined our call. Hey, Ruthie, how's things in Midland?
It's good. I'm so sorry I'm late. You called my house at 1:15 and I left at about 20 minutes to 1 to go to my Tai Chi class. And then I went to everything under the sun, and I realized at 5 after 7, I could probably join in, but it took me a while. I couldn't make the link work. It finally worked, but I couldn't get the link to work. So I'm here now. Sorry I'm so late.
Welcome to the call. It is being recorded, so we'll have it available to you after the session is over. I wanted to give Scott Huffman another opportunity to share a little bit more about his race and what positive things he is wanting to get done in the U.S. Congress on our behalf. Scott, I turn it over to you, because we'll probably close the meeting out with your sharing.
All right, well, great, thank you. Well, look, if you guys remember when we were able to meet in person, we had Mayor, then at the time, Mayor Al Hagens come and speak for the Senior Dems. She's such a wonderful person, and she's become such a close friend of mine. She's a grandmother, a Army veteran who served the military intelligence, and she was, she ran to be our mayor of Salisbury again. And one of the things that I've wanted to do as a candidate running for office is not to just simply focus on my race. There are up and down candidates from local community school board, city council, and we had a lot of those folks running for this recent election cycle, and Al was on the ballot to run for mayor. And it gets to the point of what Amy was talking about how we've got to get people out to the polls, get leadership to get people to the polls. And Al ran a fantastic race. We knocked on doors, we canvassed. I used my computer skills to do robocalling into the city of Salisbury districts for the election, and I called a whole bunch of Democrats up in that area. And Al lost the race by 14 votes. Now they're currently going to do a recount on the 16th of November, and we're hoping maybe once they do that recount, we might find 15 votes that would put her one over, and she becomes Salisbury's mayor again. But and this was a nonpartisan race, which means Al, if she doesn't win, she's not on the city council. So she won't be able to serve the community. So 14 votes was all 15 votes was all she needed to win that election. And it gets to the point that we've got to get better at organizing. We got to get better at making phone calls. We got to get better at door knocking. And I know we're in a pandemic right now. I know people, I'm vaccinated. My children are vaccinated. My youngest son, Blake, who's 10, is excited that he can finally get the vaccination. And I think it's important that we focus on community service to get those people that represent our voices up and down the ballot in those seats where they can make a decision. And these local races are so important because those are the races, those are the positions in our government that span those federal dollars, those state dollars. And we want to make sure that those dollars go to the areas to lift impoverished communities up, to make sure that water lead pipes are being replaced, and just different things that help our community and lift all boats. And that's why it's important, again, like I said, that I think the way we energize our younger folks is we invite them into our process. We show them why their votes matter, why their participation matters. It's a civic responsibility, I feel, that every American participate in their democracy. Don't just sit by and then complain when you didn't vote that you don't like what's happening. If we want our public schools to be better, then we've got to vote people in that will make sure. I attended a couple weeks ago at a church in Harrisburg who had people who were screaming CRT, and there was a board member from Cabarrus County School Boards there talking about how they're going to make sure that our teachers don't teach critical race theory, even though it's not being taught in our schools. It's just being used as a way to scare people. And we cannot ignore our past. Our past is what defines our future. And if we don't acknowledge that our country was built off the backs of slaves, and that we've marginalized people of color, we can never build for a better future that is inclusive to everybody. And that's one of the reasons why I'm running, is to make sure that when I'm speaking in Washington for my district, I'm speaking for everybody, regardless of their political affiliation. I'm speaking for the Latinos, the African Americans, the Asian Pacific community, everybody up and down the spectrum, the Islamic community. We've got to make sure that we invite everybody into this American process, and starting at the high schools is the best place. I did debriefings on my campaign on why I lost, like Amy talked about earlier. And one of the things that we looked at was the fact that we couldn't do enough canvassing because of the pandemic, and Republicans were out there doing it. They didn't care if they continued to spread the virus. But we did make a ton of phone calls into the area. So I urge everybody that's, we've got about 30 people participating in this conference. It's so good to see my friends at Cabarrus County. I hope we can do an in-person get together soon. But we need to make sure that we're talking about all our candidates up and down the ballot. Last year I was the only congressional candidate endorsed by Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker, and he actually did a fundraiser for my campaign, and I have his phone number. So he's, I've already reached out to him, told him I'm running again, and he'll be able to do a fundraiser again for us. But the other thing is we've got to talk about what's happening in the community. If you guys didn't know, on October 31st, I was pepper sprayed by the Graham Police Department on a Souls to the Polls march and a Black Lives Matter rally in in the city of Graham. And I was pepper sprayed. A police officer pepper sprayed me in the back. It overwhelmed me. You know, these kind of tactics by police on our communities, we have to work to retrain our police officers so they can de-escalate instead of escalate. And the police escalated that situation into the use of where they were using chemical weapons on our American brothers and sisters. And the elderly were pepper sprayed, children were pepper sprayed, and then started vomiting from the effects of that. A 5-year-old was pepper sprayed. And so, you know, we've got to make sure that our police know that this is not acceptable to do. And so we've got to work together to get a positive message out there and talk about the good work that President Biden and Democrats are doing in Washington. We got the infrastructure bill. You know, like I said earlier, Richard Hudson said that, you know, he wanted to delay the infrastructure vote so they could have the Congressional Budget Office analyze what this is going to do for our communities. Well, he didn't do that when Trump was passing all those $1 trillion of tax breaks. You know, they just passed them. But, you know, this infrastructure plan is going to help our communities. It's going to help our roads, our bridges, broadband, internet in rural communities. It's going to work on climate change. It's going to work to do clean water. And there's so much in that. And then we've also got to get the Build Back Better plan passed. That will help to create 1.5 million jobs a year for the next decade. So Republicans can't govern. They have to cheat to win by gerrymandering, suppressing the vote, and then, of course, making horrible comic book videos depicting the murder of AOC and the murder of President Biden. I don't know if anybody has heard that, but Representative Kozar has made a video where he superimposed the faces. So the vileness of the Republicans need to be called out, and they need to be held accountable. So that's why, you know, I'm going to call out Richard Hudson for wanting to support the overthrow of our democracy, wanting to override the votes of so many millions of people in the United States. And his hypocrisy is overwhelming. And I'm gonna be talking very loud. So I hope that if there's any church ladies in the in our group, just let me know. I'll refrain from a few colorful metaphors, but I am going to be very forceful in my talking and talk about what they're doing to overthrow our democracy, because I believe if we lose the House and we don't control the Senate, that's going to cripple President Biden. His agenda will never go forward. And then, of course, we'll see the continuation of voter suppression, gerrymandering, and just more move towards an authoritarian fascist rule of our country. And, you know, right now, these gerrymandering districts that the Republicans in Raleigh have drawn is representation, taxation without representation. We're being taxed, but we can't get the representation our tax dollars should get us.
Yeah. Well, Scott, you're spot on, and the force is with you. Can't resist that. But you know, let's stay in touch in the next several months as we go through the primary cycle and make sure that we can help you in any way that we can.
Yep.
I noticed that Betty had posted something in the chat room. Thank you for that, letting us know that you're trying to get virtual meetings. For those of you who look at the chat, you'll see her comment up there. The meeting is going to be tomorrow. We are over our limit time.
Let me just say one more thing real quick. I apologize, Vincent. I put links in the conversation for our volunteers. We need volunteers also. And look, I need folks to make contributions to our campaign. Richard Hudson is in knee deep in the dark money, and I'm not accepting any of that corporate PAC money. I'm making sure that my average donation since we started this race has been around $25. So please consider a donation of $25 and a monthly recurring donation up until November of next year. Thank you.
And
Scott, give us your address.
ScottHuffman.com. You want my mailing address?
I'll take that too.
Well, you know, I'm drawing a blank. It's it's on my website, ScottHuffman.com. Just click at the bottom, and you'll see the link down there. But Ruthie, give me a call. I think you got my number. So
May the force be with you.
No, that's live long and
I
prosper.
know, I know. I couldn't remember. That's Spock.
Well, everyone, thank you for being a part of this call tonight. It's good to see everyone, and this is how we get together, at least until COVID's over. There's a meeting going on right now that I'm going to join in just a minute, and I think some of you are already signed up to do that as well, where we can hear a continuation of the conversation about the new North Carolina project that Amy's heading up, and also a state senator who's going to be talking about gerrymandering and the effects of gerrymandering. So I encourage you to sign up for that and be there for that. If not, I'm sure they'll record it and we'll have it available. We'll make this recording available. I'm going to stop recording now. And again, thanks everyone on this call, and enjoy the holiday. Veterans on this call, Scott, thank you for your service. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
When's the next meeting? When's the next meeting, Vince?
The next meeting will be the second Tuesday in December. It'll probably still be on Zoom, Ruthie.
I
right?
figured.
Yeah.
I'll put it on my calendar this time.
Second Tuesday of the month, every month, the second
I
Tuesday.
know. I just didn't have it on my calendar.
Okay. Gotcha. All right, I'm going to stop recording. Let's see here.